When I sit down with a family in order to plan a memorial service, I always ask if there are any scriptures that speak to them. And I am so glad that they chose Philippians 4. There's so much in that letter that Paul sends to the people in the church of Philippi that we can use in our daily lives. But I was even blessed before that to have a time with Rich to actually talk about what he wanted. And that doesn't always happen. That's why I have a dress on today. I'm typically not a dress person, but he wanted it to be like an AA meeting. He wanted all his friends and family gathered here, and he just thought it would be that with everybody dressed up. So whatever dressed up is for you, that's what I wanted to honor today, and that is such a joy. So the words of the book of Philippians start with this: rejoice in the Lord always, and again I say it, rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all. The Lord is near, and do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all of our human understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. And it might be hard for us today to think about the word rejoicing on a day like today, a day when we all have come together today with our real feelings of loss and our sadness, our palpable missing of this man Rich that we so loved. But that is exactly what Paul tells the church. Rejoice always. Live with gentleness. Do not be anxious. Pray in every situation, and do all of this with a spirit of thankfulness. And there's many, many times that I believe that we put more of our effort and energy into our worry, into our sadness, into our anger, and into our fear. So what if we used those words and we tried to live differently than the rest of the world? And if we did that, we might pray about our circumstances and try finding things to rejoice about, even in the midst of our difficulties, even in the midst of our pain. Rich and I had conversation here in this building every week. I don't believe a week really went by without me seeing, unless he was away on vacation or I was away. And some of those conversations were short, and some of them were a little lengthy. But he would often ask for prayer for himself, for his family and friends, and for situations that were going on. But there was no day more important than when the doctors lay out all of the medical truths to you, and you have to make decisions pretty quickly. In the midst of what he heard, he was able to clearly communicate his wishes, and he was so glad. He was rejoicing in the fact that he was able to make these decisions. And when I spoke to him in the hours after that, he displayed the results of that rejoicing and that decision making. The results were, and the peace of God that transcends our human understanding was guarding his heart and his mind in Christ Jesus. And it's a peace that passes all of our understanding, a peace that is well within us, maybe not physically, but spiritually. Because in that moment, we feel secure and we feel comfortable. And I saw it. I physically saw it in his face. And I know Sherry saw it. And I know Tiffany saw it. And some of you gathered here were fortunate to have seen that peace as well. Scripture continues, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about these things. And whatever you have learned or received or heard from me or seen in me, put it into practice. And the God of peace will be with you. Well, every last one of us that is crammed into this place today is a sinner in need of healing. We all are seeking wholeness in our own personal lives. And it is such a wonderful joy to witness that transforming power of the Holy Spirit in our lives and in the lives of others. Is it not? It sure is. It sure is. And this happens to so many of us, and whether you are someone connected to the AA program or not, once a dramatic change has occurred, we are called to live differently from that point forward. And I know I saw that in Rich because he was so mindful of others. He was noble and worked for excellence in his own life. And yet he also worked for excellence and honorability and admirability in the lives of others. And that's something that's very cool. But some of you might have thought it was controlling, overbearing, opinionated, but he had this great new life and he wanted others to experience it as well. And whatever you have learned or received or heard, put it into practice. Put it into practice. And since AA is a spiritually based program where each individual seeks their higher power, Rich was doing that. He was putting into practice that which he received and he learned, and it was a better way, a happier way, a life-giving way, a healing way for him to enjoy life. It is because of this new life that he received after becoming clean and sober, and I know his 33 years was just here. It's just coming around the corner here. It is because he has received that gift of new life that he enjoyed life and living completely different. Those motorcycle rides, his golf game, playing cards, movies, steak dinners. I heard about some of those. Kenmore West football friends. Is just sitting around and enjoying a game of football or any of the sports, because I know he loved ESPN, and spending time with his AA friends and especially with his family. You see, our greatest moments of peace come from making peace with the worst parts of ourselves and making a decision to change, to live differently. God's peace is found in grace, in unconditional acceptance, in forgiveness, in reconciliation, in humbleness, in gratitude, in comfort, in love, and in joy in believing that there is hope for each and every one of us. Scripture continues, I rejoice greatly in the Lord as last you renewed your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned, but you had no opportunity to show it, and I'm not saying this because I'm in need. For I have learned to be content, whatever the circumstance. I know what it is to be in need, and I know what it is to have plenty. I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation. See, joy doesn't come from being wealthy or powerful. True rejoicing comes from contentedness. And I know Rich knew what it was like to be in need, as many of us gathered here today have also had that experience. But I found that if we stop comparing our lives to those who have more, or those we think are better than we are, we begin to get comfortable in our own skin and ask, am I truly trying to live a better life today than I was yesterday? And then we can rejoice in God's work in our life. We all have a long way to go to become holy. I know I certainly do. But isn't it great that we got started at all? As Christians, we seek our peace and our strength in Christ Jesus, and we can do all things, the good, the bad, the difficult, the impossible, and the joyful in Him who gives us strength. It is my daily prayer. And I am sure that Rich also sought out wisdom and strength from the Creator and Sustainer of his life as well. My hope in sharing with you this morning is for each of us to be reminded of the impact that our changed life makes on us, but also what happens to those whom we come in contact with. Living differently in the world is tough, but its reach to so many people is immeasurable. So how many people here have been loved by Rich?
Hallelujah!
Thank God is right. How many people here have laughed with Rich? How many people here have looked to him for guidance, encouragement? How many people here look to him for a kick in the pants? Right? To me, all of your hands being raised for some or all of those questions, that is a life well lived, my friends. And I am so thankful to have had the chance to know Rich and to get to know Sherry and Tiffany as well, because now it's our turn. How will we all impact the lives of those around us? Whatever you have learned or received or heard, put it into practice, and the God of peace will be with you all. Amen. Amen. So the family has asked a few friends and family members to come forward and speak on behalf of the family, and we are going to begin with Tiffany this morning, please.
My dad wanted one final meeting where everyone dresses up, so I'm going to do my part to make that come true. My name is Tiffany, and I'm a Richaholic. I must come clean. I'm addicted to his smile, his laugh, his sarcasm, his blue eyes, and mostly his fatherly advice. He always had such a passion for life, and it truly was contagious. I have never met anyone else who has impacted so many lives and strived to make them better. All of the letters he saved from high school, the personal testimonies and life stories shared by countless friends and family, to all of the responses to his goodbye letter are clear proof of that. Family was the most important thing to him, and he treated his friends as his family, always wanting to help us in any way and pushing us to be better people. So I know a lot of us are feeling like we lost our backbone, our rock, shining light, and basically the best man most of us have ever met. But I also know that Dad would kick our asses if we fall off and slip back down into that lesser person that doesn't act on our greatest potential. He always wanted us to carry on. He would want us to carry on and bring him with us in everything we do. So follow through with your plans and commitments. Stay strong and celebrate life as he would. So to our father, brother, AA friend, bike friend, sporting friend, life friend, we all love you and will forever miss you, but we will carry on in your name. Rest in peace. I can't wait to see you again. I love you, Dad.
Sherry would like to speak this morning.
I don't know how I'm going to follow that one. Hi, my name is Sherry, and I'm a Richaholic.
Hi, Sherry.
I have been addicted to Rich for 35 years, 6 months, and 22 days. He was my best friend, my protector, but more importantly, he was my daddy. I don't know how to live life without him, but he installed this simple phrase ever since I was little: one day at a time. In his last days, I told him I was so proud of him, and he had touched so many lives. His response with a big grin, and I never went to jail.
My dad saved many souls from the depths of despair. He always had an ear to listen, a shoulder to cry on, and the best bear hugs ever. And we all know if he didn't like what you were doing or how you were doing it, oh, he'd let you know. And everyone else in the room, too. My dad was very loved. I loved my dad, and he loved you all. I know he will truly be missed. I want to thank everyone for your support, your love, and your memories. And just know that he's always with you in your heart. Thank you for being there for us.
I have been asked to read for Sarah. She was feeling she might not be able to stand up here today, so Sarah is in the front row with us here, and she has written, "My name is Sarah, and I'm a Richaholic."
Hi, Sarah.
I gotta get better at that. We gotta get better at that. No, what the heck? Richard came to Texas around 1978 and quickly captured my heart. We shared so much laughter in those early years. He became my best friend, my soulmate, and a beautiful Christian man. Richard was also the very best dad to Sherry and to Tiffany. We had a chance to talk before he passed on, and we are so very, very, very proud of our daughters. They are such beautiful women. I may have been the bitch that brought him into recovery, but he is the one who made his recovery grow. I will miss my friend and his beautiful smile. I can never thank him enough for loving me. That's from Sarah. Next, I'm going to call forward Terry, who was Rich's sponsor.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. I'm going to talk a little bit about what Rich and I worked on, and I'm going to begin with saying that Rich had 33 years of continuous sobriety in a community-based 12-step program, since we're anonymous, you know. And I was a fellow walker with him. I'm going to focus this morning on, I just need to read you something. Our discussions a lot of times were based in the last 3 steps. We call them maintenance steps in that program. I'm just going to read it to you for a reason. Tiffany told me I could take longer than 4 minutes, so she said it so. Step 10, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. There's a principle in that step called perseverance. Step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for the knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. The principle of that step is spirituality. Step 12, having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. That's the principle of service. Our discussions were within the parameter of those steps, and I thought a great deal about what I wanted to say initially. I considered sharing anecdotes to attempt to help us all remember the lighter, funnier events that I and we shared with Rich. As I thought more about it, I decided that I was going to share in a general way some of the more important discussions that we had. True enough, we talked about all the issues that plagued those of us in recovery. Fear, resentment, dishonesty, selfishness, and how the 7 deadly sins mentioned in the big book, both of them, by the way, sometimes affected us. We would focus on the program tools and how to apply them to our life situations appropriate to the day and circumstance. Please note that I'm saying us and not him. He was as influential on me as I was on him. Anyway, in my mind, the most important talks focused on our relationship with God as each of us understood Him. Those of you who are on social media may have received a very poignant goodbye letter ending with the dude abides. Many people who are not a member of our fellowship sometimes cringe when they hear one of us refer to God as we understand him by a myriad of names. Even people within our fellowship will sometimes attempt to correct us on the right way to refer to God. Rich lived by and exemplified this spiritual aspect of our program by allowing program people in his life to find their own personal relationship with God. Higher power, HP, creator, Gus, God upstairs, Rita, Betty, spirit of the universe, Jehovah, Allah, Yahweh, God, Lunkin Tonkin, wind, Tonkin Sheila, great spirit, grandfather, love, Bin Elohim, friend, and most of all, father. We both shared the notion that a person's personal name for a power greater than themselves was important in aiding a man or woman in establishing a safe and loving personal relationship with a power greater than themselves to help them find the faith needed for recovery. Rich had a deep understanding of the need for recovering people to have a personal relationship with God of their understanding. We spent time talking about this relationship, and as our understanding grew, we became more aware that the statement, "but for the grace of God," was not just something to say when we survived some near-miss emotional or egocentric pitfall. The sense of grace became an active force in our lives. Rich was a man with a huge capacity for loving. He loved his friends and this program and supported both with great loyalty. Rich was a romantic in the true sense of the word. His choice of movies and books leaned toward the swashbuckling and the sci-fi movies where the hero always got the girl. We often spoke of the AA code of love and tolerance. In 1965, In 1965, AA added to this code when we adopted the following suggestions that clarified even more that the service aspect of our 12-step community. The suggestion goes like this: anytime anyone reaches out their hand for help, I want the hand of AA to be there. Rich would always consult with folks about house repairs, provide remodeling hints, and actual work for a reasonable cost. As far as doing service and providing venues for socializing needs, let's talk about the list. Picnics, Christmas parties, golf outings, participation in sing-alongs, card parties, leading business meetings, 50-50, and medallion days. He believed in service work and continued within his ability to do so, even as his health declined. The work was done, as has been said earlier, usually with a grin, and when the grin disappeared, we usually heard about it. I also know how much he loved his children. He told me many times as he shared his father's sins and worries with me. He was always talking about how proud he was of his children and expressing regrets that he couldn't do more for them. The love of children helped define who he was. I'd like to share, if I'm able, one of my favorite quotes. It's a quote from The Velveteen Rabbit by Beatrix Potter. It's a discussion between a wise old skin horse and a new toy, a rabbit. "What's real?" asked the rabbit one day, when they were lying side by side near the nursery fender before Nana came to tidy the room. "Does it mean having things that buzz inside you? Or a stick-out handle?" "Real isn't how you're made," said the skin horse. "It's a thing that happens to you. When a child loves you for a long, long time, not just to play with, but really loves you, you become real." "Does it hurt?" asked the rabbit. "Sometimes," said the skin horse, for he was always honest. When you're real, you don't mind being hurt." "Does it happen all at once, like being wound up?" the rabbit asked, "or bit by bit?" "It doesn't happen all at once," said the skin horse. You become. It takes a long time. That's why it doesn't happen often to people who break easily, or have sharp edges, or who have to be carefully kept. Generally, by the time you're real, most of your hair's been loved off, and your eyes drop out, and you get loose in the joints, and you're very shabby. But these things don't matter. Because once you're real, you can't be ugly except to people who don't understand. So love of family and friends were a frequent subject. Rich seemed to never stay angry with anyone for a long time and worked very hard to extinguish any resentment that developed from negative interactions with people in his life. This is the unfortunate part I have to share it all. This is a character defect I could not get rid of in his life. He was an ardent Yankees fan. And I am a Red Sox fan. And I can almost imagine Rich right now talking with Billy Martin, Yogi Berra, and all those other Yankee greats who have gone before. Rich was a true baseball aficionado. That being said, I'd like to close this story with a sort of a favorite joke that Rich and I shared a lot. Bill and Charlie were two good friends, lifelong friends you could say, like Rich and I. They were both baseball fans, and like Rich and I, one was a Red Sox fan and one was a Yankee fan. As they grew older, they became more philosophical, and one day a discussion arose between them as to whether or not baseball was played in heaven. Since both were in their later years, they agreed that the one of them who passed before the other would come back and tell the one who's still alive if there was. Well, Charlie passed just a few weeks after they made the agreement, and a week or so later, Bill was sleeping and was startled awake seeing Charlie at the foot of his bed. He was really glad to see his friend and said, "Charlie, what's the word?" And Charlie replied, "I have good news and I have bad news." "Okay," says Bill. "Well, what's the good news?" Charlie says, "There is baseball in heaven." Then Bill goes, "Well, what's the bad news?" "You're pitching next Wednesday." So Rich, if you're paying attention and have any influence, could you ask God to leave me out of the lineup for a little while longer? Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to call Aunt Ann up. She has some words to say today.
Hi. Oh, I guess, I forgot the, yeah, I guess I am a Richaholic and didn't even know it, so now I have to own up to that. Okay, I am Richard's oldest sister. Okay, and we thank you all for coming to celebrate with us the transition of Richard Michael Slaper from this earth. He was born with Mom's blue eyes and Dad's keen intelligence, and they both must have been stubborn as heck and so competitive. So he's the youngest of our magnificent seven, as Mom used to call us. Last year, when our sister Mary passed, I was so impressed by her 16-year-old grandson who came up and spoke a few words. And after, I did not have the courage or wherewithal to get up and speak. And afterwards I thought, oh darn, I had things to say. And so afterwards I really regretted not getting up. And I wrote down all my thoughts and things and sent them to the family. And my niece said, I learned things about my mother that I hadn't heard before. So she was, I determined I would get up this time and speak. So, Richard was a happy, precocious child who could charm all the adults in his life, and most of his life was, everybody was older than he was. When he went to kindergarten, he thought Mom would be really lonely without him. You can imagine how lonely she wasn't. Finally sending her seventh child to school full-time. For Rich, it must have been like having 6 mothers, 5 sisters and Mom. He did really well in school at St. John's and Kemmer West. Academically, he was a very good student, having the gift of gab. And he played football in school and really loved it. But in his senior year, he decided to join the drama club. And he had such a wonderful time. He was the captain of the guard in The Wizard of Oz. But then the Cowardly Lion became sick, and Richard was the stand-in for the Cowardly Lion. He did a superb job. So he had the bug, and after school he joined some community theater and did things like that. Occasionally he babysat for his sisters and brother, and house sat too, and took care of some of the pets and things when we would be on vacation. So he was very helpful to his siblings in that manner. But at one point he lived with our sister Mary and worked with her husband and learned things, other jobs, but he was not satisfied and decided to go to Texas. So there he met Sarah, and after several months, Sarah called us. It must have been years. It was years. Sarah called us, and she was very concerned and about drug and alcohol addiction. So she was organizing an intervention, and his siblings went down to Texas and participated. He was so surprised to see us, and then he realized what was happening. Oh dear. But he did agree to go to rehab. Eventually, after rehab, he and Sarah decided to move back to Buffalo. They were lured by the promise of a job with Jip Systems from Roy's brother-in-law, Jimmy Waugh. And everything Richard did was done with passion and flair, always striving to be number one. At work, he became Jim's go-to guy and developed some serious carpentry skills. And his personality enabled him to interact with clients and co-workers really well. When he found his favorite meeting situation, the eye-opener meetings, he quickly became an event planner, organizer for picnics, fundraisers, etc. He was an MC, Master of Ceremonies extraordinaire. His eye-opener and AA companions have been his loyal and true family, supporting him over 32 years of sobriety. His siblings and children and grandchildren are very grateful. We are very grateful for his family. Richard loved karaoke. It was a really super source of entertainment for him and the rest of both families. He enjoyed times with both families being running the karaoke, and he would compete. He would place himself in every few competitors when we had a family picnic, and he would pick out people to do karaoke with. Who he was trying to win the prize for best karaoke competition. So, and he loved playing cards with his friends, and he even played, other than his regular groups, he played with his sisters, played cards, and we would wear crazy hats, and he went in full force with that too, trying to outdo us with his crazy hats. So Rich, everything he did well. He enjoyed cooking. We love his pizza sauce, fruit salad, and every Thanksgiving he would cook a turkey, and our competitiveness came out again when we had a stuff-off. Everybody would make stuffing, and we would see whose was the best. We would try. So, and then there were his bears. He was a player manager for many years, and then when he couldn't play anymore, he would still manage the teams. But his competitive nature was there in spades. The Bears have done very well. Then he had his golf weekends, his biker trips. He just was a big sports fan. In recent years, he went to his nephew's football games, Williamsville North football games, and Richard could have been a coach. He just knew what the players should be doing, and he would call the plays, and he would commentary on the mistakes the coach was making. So he knew better than they did. So fiercely competitive and super intelligent. We will all miss you so much, but we understand you did it your way. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I want to call up Ned. Ned, it's been nice to speak.
Hi, I'm Ned, and I guess I am a Richaholic too.
Hi, Ned.
And don't get worried, these are just, this is not a full script. This is just some one-liners that Rich always used to pop on us, and just as reminders. I must say first off that this is one of the times that I'm really grateful for social media, because we were able to reach out to a lot of people, and I didn't realize how many people he had touched and how many different types of organizations he was involved in and the things that he had gotten into. You know, I heard little bits and pieces, but and then in the course of reading your responses to his letter that he posted on Facebook, it really gave me a sense of the man that I know. And he was a lot larger than I thought. To put it mildly, he was a mountain of a man. And just the fact that he touched so many people in so many ways. And yeah, I wanted to start my little talk out with, Rich Slaper was a biker, and he was a good friend of mine. And, but he always used to hit me with these one-liners from movies, and unfortunately I'm not a big movie buff, and they would just go over my head and he'd have to explain it to me. And it was, of course, some of them I did know, like when I asked about the truth, and he immediately turned to me and says, "You can't handle the truth." And even while he was in the hospital, you know, he just had such a sense of humor, and he kept things light all the time. He hit the button to call one of the nurses in, and the nurse comes rushing in, you know, to see what's the matter, and he turns to her and he goes, "Houston, we have a problem." And, you know, you could tell that that they enjoyed being around him, even the nurses. And I was up there also another time. Nurse came in and was explaining, I have to do this thing to you. And he did that look, and I'm sure if you knew him at all, it was that like, oh, please. And he looked at her and he said, I'll do anything, but I won't do that. And, and people have shared about the karaoke nights that he set up. And I still remember, I will never forget, him being up there and him and Jody doing Paradise by the Dashboard Light. And they were awesome. It was great. And, I just, all these things, he just touched so many people. And, he's, of course, I knew him mainly with the bikes. I've been a Harley rider for years. And I remember when he started riding with us on that little Honda that Peter let him use. And I remember he just enjoyed it so much. He used to love the ride, facing the wind. And one time we got back from a ride and he just sat there on that bike and he looked at me and he said, we're going to need a bigger boat. And, even at the Christmas parties, I mean, he was just constantly doing this stuff. And one time I remember looking up and we were getting everything ready and we're setting up and the curtains on the front stage downstairs, you'll see them when we go there. And he had all his stuff set up and he pulled the curtains across. And I was like, what the heck? And he pops up from behind and he says, pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But, one of the things, he used these things, these little quotes, and people, one of the things with the newcomers, he would tell them, just keep swimming. Of course, we tell you keep coming back. And, but he would tell them, just keep swimming. And a lot of people still say that. And I can remember a couple of times, not that he would get hard-headed, but we'd have arguments over things. And he would just look at me and say, what we've got here is a failure to communicate. I really loved all the time that we spent together. We spent a lot of time on the roads. He loved riding his bike. And I remember the day he had the bike delivered. I was there, I took pictures, and I posted them, and I put it, the delivery. And he was just so proud of that bike. And I have to share one other line, and he did it to me all the time, because I would tell him, no, I'm serious. And he said, Shirley, I'm serious about this. And he says, yes, I am serious, but don't call me Shirley. I could go on forever. He was a great guy, and I'm privileged to have known him. He touched my life. And another one of his quotes, he'd say, it's not the years, honey, it's the mileage. And he got a lot of mileage. And last, I want to leave you with, I'm sure that he arrived in heaven, and knowing Rich, he looked around and he said, Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore. But the final word, and this is a quote from the movie The Gladiator, what we do in life echoes in eternity. And he is echoing. And with that in mind, these two quotes are from the Bible. The king will reply, truly I tell you, whatever you did for the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me. And lastly, well done, my good and faithful servant.
Amen. His cousin Jason is going to speak to them.
Can't believe I'm the only one that actually just did it on his phone. I just expected you to. I understood why Aunt Ann went to paper, and all the guys had folders, but
Old school, Dad would have done that.
I was lucky enough to be pretty close to Uncle Rich. We had a lot of common interests. Many of you can attest to the fact that when Rich was planning an event, his OCD really came out. The first time I showed up to play Texas Hold'em at the house, he had bags made up for every player with their name on them. But wait, let's go back a second here. We had meetings to plan. Jay, myself, and Uncle Rich, we had meetings, yes, meetings to plan this. We had to come up with the rules that we were going to use. Then he made signs and posted around the room because you couldn't see the same spot from every table. And so there was the planning of Uncle Rich and how much he enjoyed doing that. And it wasn't even so much, then when you saw the planning go involved, there was a little section in there where the blinds are going up, and everyone back there knows what I'm talking about. There was a spot where there was like break time, and that was our time to eat. We brought food, or he had food made, and Jay can attest to the fact that every time we did the event, the food got better and better. In fact, to the point where Jay decided he was going to cook it himself. And that was really a time where we got to take a break, and it wasn't just about the food. It was about, now we're going to watch the game we're missing because we're playing cards, or we're going to catch up with each other, and then we're going to get back to playing cards. And each event, and yes, some of them back there know that some of them thought it was the main event. They played cards pretty hard and heavy, but Rich was in his glory. He really enjoyed the company more than the event itself. I remember way back when Aunt Judy and Uncle Roy had a party for the holidays, and Rich always had a game. In fact, it kept going to many of our other events where the index card story, where everyone would get a card that had a number on it, and your card was up next. You had to read the previous card, write the sentence, and get that card to the next person. And the story was always funny at the end. And at this particular party, he also had a jar of M&Ms, and you had to guess how many M&Ms were in the jar. And so then he finally read the story, card to card, and then he got to the end of the story, and everyone's laughing. He goes, "Oh, and by the way, everyone here at the party, you all got robbed." And everyone's like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well," he gave a couple of the two people that were closest to the number of M&Ms in the jar. But then he said, "But Jason, you hit it exactly." And I was like, "Really?" So I got the jar of M&Ms. I hit the 583, I think was the number. And I don't know why I came up with that number, but I did. But it was just something that reminded me of how Rich was always trying to make things fun, make things an event, make things. We always had things going on, and that index card story definitely went from party to party. Rich loved his life. He loved his girls. He loved his siblings. He loved his nieces and nephews. He loved his AA friends. He loved his biker friends. He loved his card playing friends. He loved planning events, and he loved his Buffalo Bills, his Buffalo Sabres. He loved the Williamsville North Spartans, one in particular. Rich really enjoyed showing support for Ryan and the Spartans. I believe it took him back to his Kenmore West days. The Spartans became his adopted team. Each week, a new part of the story was written, and I'm sure many of you who had to endure those stories week after week. For that support, I'm honored to award him this Williamsville North varsity letter. And he cared, he shared, he loved. He gave his best, and who could ask for anything more? I love you, Uncle Rich.
And Jay, the family, let's go to Jay. Come forward. If there's somebody that could get that letter written from Facebook, I'd like to read it at the end. I don't have it. You got it? Okay, just want to make sure. I want to make sure. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. Let me lower this.
Yeah, please.
Rich always teased me that I was short. He loved to make short jokes about me. Anyways, I want to thank everybody, too, for being here. I'd like to thank Pastor Katie, who Walked Rich through that valley of darkness those last couple of weeks and before that, and it really meant a lot to him. And I want to thank you. I want to thank Terry too for leaving me a couple minutes. Thanks, Terry. You know what, we have a saying around here: if you gotta talk longer than 3 minutes, call your sponsor. Well, Rich was my sponsor. I don't think I'm going to be calling him today, so give me 5 minutes. Anyways, I know there's many people that have known Rich a lot longer than me. I go back about 20 years with Rich. I know his Kenmore West football team. There's somebody back there that graduated high school with him. So I'm honored and both humbled to be asked to say a few words. I'm going to keep it short. Rich and I, we didn't have the smoothest of beginnings in our relationship. If those of you that know about it, him and I, mostly I could press his buttons. Once in a while he would press mine. We talked about Rich's poker games, and one of the first memories I have of playing, it was actually the first poker game I was at Rich's house. And you know, we started playing, and a couple hands in, Rich asked this question: does a straight beat a flush? And I'm thinking, now I've been playing poker since before I could ride a bike. And I'm thinking, oh, good, this is going to be good. This is really going to be good. And later on, you know, I got in an argument with him over a pot, and you know, and I was trying to get him to throw his cards in, and that was my strategy. And he got mad, and he threw his cards in. He had the winning hand. He threw his cards in, and I had him on tilt for the rest of the night. Now, fast forward 16, maybe 17 years later, till about 6 weeks ago, Rich had a game at his house. And we're halfway through the game. I don't know, we usually started at 6:30 or so and went to 11 or 11:30. And I was involved in a pot, Rich was not. To make a long story short, Rich brought up some obscure thing and went on about 5 minutes, and I got distracted, and I made a huge mistake, and I had to throw the winning hand in after I had thrown a whole bunch of money in the pot. And I was pissed. And it was my fault. But anyways, I started blubbering, I started, you know, ranting and raving, and sort of at Rich, and he went into the kitchen, and about 2 minutes later, he blew up, and he, you know, I heard screaming, whatever he was screaming, and I scooped up my money, and I said, I'm out of here, and I ran out to my car, and I'd never done that before, and I don't know what turned me around. I sat there for a couple seconds, but it's just, I guess, where our relationship had gone and had blossomed from there, and I had that moment of clarity, and I came back inside, and I sat down, and I said, I don't want to leave, man. I didn't know that was going to be the last poker game I was going to play with Rich, but I'm sure glad I did come back. I stayed the rest of the night. He had me on tilt the rest of the night, but that was okay. I didn't care, you know. Rich has meant so much to so many people. He was a sensitive guy, and I won't be politically correct, but sometimes he could be a big baby. But that's what we loved about Rich. I have one anecdote about his sensitivity. A couple years ago, I said to him, Rich, and Rich loved football, and he was proud that he was on the Kenmore West High School team. And I said, Rich, I said, geez, I just saw that movie, Concussion. Have you seen it? And all of a sudden, he started crying. He said, oh, I can't see that movie. I said, what are you crying about? He said, I played that game. I cannot see that movie. Here's the man's crying. I said, Rich, it's a movie. He was crying over Concussion. But that was Rich, and I loved him for it. Golf has been mentioned. I'm cutting this short because I had a couple of golf anecdotes, but I'll just tell one real quick. Rich loved to participate in the golf, and we included him because he wasn't a great golfer. And at the end, I won't go any further than that. At the end, he could just chip maybe 5 feet from off the green and putt, and we would include him in the in the scramble games that we had, and that we started scrambling so we could include him. But over the last summer on one of our trips, my dear friend Peter Stanley invented this game where it was just the four. It was just the force. It was Peter, myself, and Rich and somebody else. Where Rich could drop his ball on the green, every hole, lying two, and we had to take whatever score we came up with. So we came to the third hole. It's a par 5. The three of us are probably laying 4, 5, or 6 or whatever. Rich drops his ball on the green. He's laying 2. I looked at him. I said, Rich, if you lose this hole, you ought to be shot. And he looked at me and his favorite retort was, "Shut up, Jay." That's what he said. Later on in the clubhouse when we were having lunch and we were handing him our money, at least I was handing him my money, I said, you know, this game, this wasn't fair. I said, this game should be named Rich Wins. And Rich was very competitive, but he was fair. He was a stickler for the rules, and there was Rich's rules. And he says, yeah. He says, I think next time we got to tweak it a little bit. I said, do you think? He said, yeah. He still took my money. He still took all of my money. But he said, yeah. Anyways. I don't know, if some of you don't know this, but the last, on a more serious note, since Thanksgiving, Rich has been doing a project at our house. He's been building a room in my basement. And I remember when Sherry and I were ferrying his tools down, and Rich was up outside, and Sherry and I were, and I said to Sherry in the basement, out of Rich's earshot, Sherry, I'm really afraid about that. I'm really concerned about this. I'm really concerned. And I said, is he gonna have some help? You know, this and that and the other thing. And, you know, I was scared. You know, I was scared to the fact that I told my mother-in-law was with this Agnes, and she loved Rich too. And I said, Agnes, the first couple of days she was, you know, they're paranoid. My mother-in-law, they locked the doors in the middle of right now, they locked the doors. But she locked the doors, and I said, when Rich is here alone, do not lock that front door. God forbid somebody has to get in. I said, don't lock that door. But as time went on, this last couple of months, I grew a lot more comfortable, and it's unbelievable. But the last day he worked, he finished 98% of the room. It's a beautiful room. He came up the stairs that day, and I had a routine with Rich where I would go downstairs after he got settled. I'd go down and have a 10 or 15-minute conversation. I might have seen him here in the morning in the meeting, so I was seeing Rich more than I had ever, spending a lot of time since Thanksgiving with Rich. Had some really, really great conversations, and he was my sponsor and was able to roll things by him. I know that it's been said that he wouldn't have wanted to been incapacitated in a nursing home. He wouldn't have wanted to been a burden to his family. He also said to me a month or so ago, I don't know in what context the conversation came up, but he said, you know, I'm happy with my life. I'm happy. And, you know, with all his physical disabilities, he was a happy man. And I find some peace in that. So the room is, I'm naming the room the Miracle Room, and I am going to put up a plaque. I'll just, I'm cutting a little short because I know there's other people that have to speak, but Rich, besides being a movie buff, Rich loved music. And a group we had in common was the Grateful Dead. I would also go downstairs when he was working, and when I had to go on the treadmill, and he would always have his radio on to 55, the sports channel, and that's all he would listen to. But he would turn the radio off, and I would put the Dead on. And one day this song came on, "I Know You Rider," and starts out with China Cat. It's a segue. China Cat, I Know You Rider. And, you know, after Rich said, geez, those are really great lyrics. I'm sure Rich had heard the song before, but the song goes, I know you, Rider, you will miss me when I'm gone, and I certainly will miss him. It also says, and I'm not a crier either, the sun will shine in my back door someday. And when Rich came into my life and became my friend, that sun has been shining an awful lot. May have been blocked a little bit when he was standing in the doorway, but it's been shining an awful lot. Thanks, everybody.
There are so many people here that if we had everybody that wanted to speak today, we'd probably go into tomorrow. So those are the people that the family has already spoken to and have asked to share a little bit with you. But I don't want the stories to stop. The stories need to continue because, like someone already said, is we learn things about our friend, our loved one, when we share the stories. So the stories absolutely need to continue. Like one thing that I learned about him that I really hadn't known, all these pictures that you're seeing in the windows are photographs that he took and were hanging in his home. So make sure you take a look at those before you leave this place. And I know there's a lot of mementos out in the hallway. Make sure you stop and take a look at that as well. If you could pull out your bulletins and join me as we share in unison in Psalm 23, please. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in right paths for his name's sake. Even though I walk through the darkest valleys, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord my whole life long. Amen. Would you join your heart with mine as we go in prayer?